It seems that no matter how many rifles you own, you always end up shooting 22s the most. Maybe air rifles in my case recently I shoot a lot of, but still 22s outnumber just about everything else. And some of them 22s that are around are pretty amazing. Took me a long time to get the 22s I'm going to show you, and then I've got a couple of others for later in the video. But have a look at this rifle. You probably are not aware that it exists. Somebody did a good job here and highlighted the inscription on the fire on the rifle. It's a Winchester Model 55. Now, you know, I'm always amazed at what you know, but I wasn't familiar with this 22 for a long time. And then I saw something in a rack, and yeah, so we'll just go over how it works, which is, like I said, remarkable. And here's how it works. You pull back the bolt handle, which is here, and you can see there's no visible ejection port. How does it load? Well, we're going to find out. So you pull back this handle, and you heard something click, and you depress this gate and push a 22 round into the chamber right there. And it slides in naturally, or like quite naturally, and it's easy. You leave that and your rifle's loaded. When you depress this gate, you actually are also activating the safety, which is back here. You'll see the safety move. I don't know if that shows up on camera. I'll do it one more time. So you always have to remember that it's an automatic safety, which a lot of you have written me you don't like. I don't particularly like them either. So then what happens? So you've got a round in the chamber, which we don't have, but you can imagine it. And you pull the trigger. And I'm going to take this apart in a second, but I'll explain how it works first. So you pull the trigger, the rifle fires, and the round is ejected. Now we'll take it apart. I'll show you what's going on. It's quite interesting. I don't know why Winchester made this rifle, but it's really something else. So we'll go back to the drill, pull the action open, and you can see the bolt is back here now. That includes the firing pin. This is effectively a slam fire, single shot, semi-automatic 22, because it ejects the empty. So we cock the action, slide the shell in here, and you can see this nasty automatic safety here when we push the thing down, the gate down. And now we'll push the safety forward, and you'll see the bolt fly forward here. That's it. There's no detonation because we have no cartridge. If there were one, it would eject and we would be ready for repeating the cycle, which cock, load, safety off, and fire. So there it is, Winchester Model 55, and this is a very collectible 22. They're very hard to find. They maybe would be worth more if there were more of them around for collectors to be aware of. This one is in decent shape. Like I said, it was hard to find one. And it has the typical Winchester butt plate. And I'm always surprised how many collectors of 22s only there are. There are guys I know that's all they have, going back to 18 something, and it's amazing what they know and so on. And it was those collectors that told me about the Remington Model 34, which again took me forever to find. And finally it's here. Well, I've had it for a while now, but anyway. And what I did is, well, I'll explain the rifle to you. So Model 34, made, I think, around 1934. Depending on which source you look at, and I invite you to have a look online. Obviously it's a tubular magazine. It shoots shorts, longs, and long rifles. If you can find longs, that's a good thing. And why is it notable? Because it has a fantastic feeding mechanism. When 22s came out, and actually to this day, it's tricky feeding those small cartridges, especially if you want to interchange short, long, and long rifle. And before I show you this action, one of the best feeders is the Winchester 1890. You can see, well, you can't see, the 22 round is typically in this component so that it can't go out of alignment and jam, and then the action locks shut. I've always liked the 1890 for the way it controls the cartridges, and I also like the 9422, but I'm not lucky enough to own a 9422 right now, or else I would show you. And of course the Marlin 39. I mean, there are lots of 22s there. They've perfected feeding, but for a long time it was kind of a challenge in the industry, and there are still 22s that jam. But getting back to the Model 34, you probably have never seen anything quite like this. And I'll open the action and you'll see, if we can focus on this, the extent to which they went to make sure it doesn't jam. So this carrier lifts around and you can see there's a 22 round in here. There's a cartridge in the carrier, and of course I can't have a live round, so it's no fun, believe me, but I took apart a 22 round, pulled the bullet, dumped the powder, and then fired the primer in this rifle. And then I wanted to see, actually just for fun, whether it would align the 22 case without a bullet. That's hard to do, and I was surprised it did. So I mean, this thing is flawless, and the alignment is perfect with short, long, and long rifle, but I didn't make dummies for that. So this looks like a live round, but it's not. You actually, aside from me bringing it to your attention, you wouldn't know that you're working something this special. But you close the action, you can watch it drop, and you can see that the cartridge is already in the chamber. It's just brought into perfect alignment. It's hard to describe how perfectly this thing works and feels. And then we fire, of course there's nothing there, and then the round comes out and it's ejected. And naturally, if this were a loaded tubular magazine, there would be another cartridge there. And again, you can see this is not in great shape. This has been pinned. Somebody damaged it here. There's some pins in the stock, and the finish is kind of worn. Before filming, I noticed some gouges. Have a look at these puppies over here. But again, depending on, you know, the attitude of the collector, to me this is an entirely appealing 22. I'll try to figure out how to highlight these things in white. I kind of like that Winchester Model 55. And I watched a YouTube video on how to do it with white nail polish, so I'll try to do that. You'll probably wonder about accuracy for both of these rifles. Fantastic accuracy. This 34, I don't know how many rounds it's fired. I mean, it looks like it's fired 100,000, but it's still just as accurate as any of my other bolt actions, and I really like that mechanism. It's kind of neat putting two shorts and long rifles and mixing and matching all kinds of cartridges, and they all feed perfectly. And of course it has the coin or slot screw to take it down, just like the Model 55. And yeah, so there you have two. And before we go, in case some of you aren't familiar, that Model 55, which I showed you slam firing, and it doesn't even have a firing pin, is very simple. This is the original Jev arm, and we can focus on this. This is white as well, you can see. People always scold me, don't bump your rifles on the table, but in filming, especially when you're just doing one take, and we have very primitive setup here, but this is a wonderful 22 to own. If you can ever find one of these, I have this one in long rifle, and I have one in 22 short, which was the hardest of all to find. And I probably know 6 collectors that are looking for these, but they never show up. There's a two-piece model that's not quite as nice as this one, also made by Jamar, But getting back to the point, this is how this one works. So you pull this back, and that's actually ready to fire, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? You would normally think you have to close the bolt, but the magazine would have a cartridge in it, and when you pull the trigger, just like the Model 55. So that's how you fire this thing. Fires from an open bolt. And somebody wrote me about complicated legislation involving open bolts, but I didn't quite follow what it all meant. These are just 22s, and I'll just take one last look at the Model 55 just because it's so cool. So we do this, and then you can see the I painted it white so you can see it fire. I don't know if that shows up on camera. I'll do it again. Gotta always remember that safety. Very cool rifle, and actually a lot of fun to shoot, you know, all 22s. And then this one before we go is not the Winchester, this is the Rossi. And mine never had a problem, no, nothing. Shorts, longs, long rifles, mix and match, as great as it was way back when it came out. So there it is, a little bit of a 22 review, maybe a couple of rifles you haven't seen. Thank you very much for watching, and please push the subscribe button. And if you can help the channel on Patreon, all the better. And I hope you're doing okay out there. Things are improving, I think, across the board. I hope everybody agrees with that. And we'll see you on the next video. Take care until then. Bye-bye.